News is filtering through of some disquiet in the boardroom. A psychologist, that's right. The regulator ASIC has got 21 big listed companies to volunteer or be volunteered to have an organisational psychologist at the table during board meetings, taking notes on what goes on and reporting back. ASIC wants to know why directors, especially in financial services, haven't been more sceptical of the risks in their organisation. Call it risk culture. Do directors even know enough about the business to ask the right questions? Well, not an easy space, the known unknown. The board shrink, as she's been dubbed, is Elizabeth Arzadin. Her specialty is financial services, having worked with the regulator in London after the financial crisis. She's also involved in the blistering APRA review of the Commonwealth Bank, which the Prime Minister says is required reading for all boards. There, Elizabeth Arzadin says she developed APRA's approach to evaluating risk culture in banks. Well, on Thursday, ASIC Chief James Shipton was on his feet to give an update on his strategy. ASIC is baring its teeth with its why not litigate approach, but tougher enforcement is only one tool in its kit.
We will use the full suite of our regulatory tools, enforcement being one, supervision and surveillance being another.
Well, ASIC has already embedded supervisory officers within banks to have eyes on corporate behaviour, but the boardroom psychologist is new, there to help it get closer to risk culture.
Use of these types of experts, organisational experts, behavioural experts, cultural experts, corporate cultural experts, is not new. Corporations have been using them for decades.
So, what is all the fuss about on the top floor? Well, a shrink at the table is a little uncomfortable. Would the boardroom of Qantas have behaved differently when the decision was made to ground all aircraft in its fight against the union? Would AMP directors have behaved differently when under pressure on the sale of the insurance business? Well, maybe David Murray wouldn't have, I grant you that. But the psychologist's final report will not name names, but her notes are confidential, so could they be subpoenaed in a class action maybe? And it's one thing for a board to bring in a psychologist on a specific issue, but to be put in by the regulator? Isn't this nanny state stuff?
And I appreciate that, that there is a difference, because this expert and our officers are representing ASIC. But the feedback, at least to me, from, again, a number of people, has been that it hasn't changed the dynamic and that there hasn't been parallel meetings, and that the directors whom I've spoken to actually look forward to the feedback that we're going to give by these reports that are coming out later this month.
There you go. Well, I confess there's enough British in me to feel queasy at the mere mention of a psychologist. Is this a fad? ASIC would say no. Well, it's all happening just ahead of Graham Samuel's capability report into APRA, and expect that to be critical. Back in February, he said, APRA is there for financial stability, but also to deal with governance, culture and remuneration structures to minimise the impact of misconduct. He means APRA should be pre-emptive, and that's just how Elizabeth Arzadin says we should all be looking at risk culture preemptively. She did 10 years at McKinsey, and like any good management consultant, she's created a big new job for herself. Good on her.